There we go. Vroomba. Vroomba, vroomba. Why don't we pick up this video where we left off the last one? And that's with the tailpipe for the Dakota. By the way, bed's on, looks cool, huh? Tailpipe. This is the factory tail, well, I wouldn't say factory. It's the tailpipe that came with the kit for the Hooker exhaust kit. And guess what? That looks pretty good. And I was gonna try to get it to come all the way back out the truck, which would look cool as well. But this works. So I think since this works, I'm not gonna go through the headache of trying to go straight back out for now. It's something I can take on a later project, but I think that's gonna work just fine. But I do have a little toy for it, and I went ahead and ordered it, and it's here now. And check this out. I got me a dual exhaust tip from Summit Racing with a 3-inch inlet, two 3.5-inch outlets with that are beveled. It's a pretty nice little piece. I'll put the part number in the description because I don't remember the brand. It looks like it says X-Force. And it looks like it's going to work really, really well. So why don't we put that on? Let me show you the hopefully somewhat quick process of doing that, and then we'll be good to go, right? Should be a pretty quick and easy plan. Basically, I want to get this exhaust tip on here and figure out where it's going to look best, which that should look pretty good. So let's look at the final product here, and let me know what you think. Da, 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 da. Isn't that awesome? I think it's awesome. I think it really, really looks nice. Up and out of the way. Two big tips. I like it. That exhaust came out pretty good, if I do say so myself. While I was under there, I finished up pretty much everything underneath the back of the truck. So all the wiring is done, the battery's all connected, and kind of got that in place right there. Got the disconnect switch all hooked up and working now. So we're just about done underneath the truck. There's a few small things to do, but I'll get to those at another point in time. I'm ready to move on to what this video is going to be about today, and that's dealing with this guy right here. So if you don't know, this is the engine that's been in my truck since we rebuilt it, brought it back to life. Technically, it's an LM7 Gen 3 5.3 liter LS. Well, this is the intake that came with this thing, and well, you know, it's a decent intake, stock intake, truck intake. They do pretty good for torque. But it's not the optimal, so I'm going to be changing to a Gen 4 LS intake. So that's what we're going to be working on today. Like I said, this is the intake that's been on it since I put the truck together. So let me go over some of the differences between the two. Obviously, they look different. I think this is much more of an attractive intake than this one is. Don't let the dust fool you. But there's just a lot of extra provisions and stuff on here that aren't that pretty per se. But first of all, the fuel system on this setup is a little bit different than that one. This has 2 fuel ports. That only has 1, which is right here. And well, that's why I kind of got it back up in place, because I'm going to put these things side by side and continue to compare them with y'all. But long story short, this is a send from the fuel pump. So the fuel pump comes from the tank all the way up, has a line that comes over here and connects right here to the send. It then goes through here, disperses the fuel. Used to go through a regulator right here, which I now have over here. I have deleted the regulator that was right there and put a fuel pressure sensor inside. But it goes through here, spreads the fuel out, sends it back, which that's what this line is for right here. And then goes back to the tank after the fuel pressure regulator regulates the PSI of the fuel at the rail. Well, since we're doing away with that, I have to change the fuel system. So that's going to be the first thing I work on when we do this. So I'm going to be running the send line instead of all the way over here. We're actually going to run it straight to this side of the fuel pressure regulator. Then this is no longer going to be a return. It's actually going to go straight to the fuel rail. From there, this isn't going to change. This is actually still going to be the send. So basically, the fuel's going to come up and through here. It's going to be regulated right here, and then it's going to send it back. So that's what I have to work on. So I'm going to be kind of working on that here in a minute. I'm going to pull the intake manifold off and show you guys the rest of the differences right now. Here we go. See these things side by side. You can tell that this is wider than this one is. I'm going to say probably by a couple inches. And from what I know, the intake runners are longer in the Gen 4 than they are in the Gen 3. So right off the bat, you can tell they look a little different. Now, they're both truck intakes. This is just a later model one. I think they started using this intake in 2007 with the cat eye, I believe. I might be wrong. But you can definitely tell that the fuel rails are different. Again, this is an internally regulated fuel rail, even though it's been deleted. And this is a single input, non-regulated fuel rail, which means it's regulated at the tank for these trucks from the factory. Mine's going to be on the firewall. From there, this intake has a 3-bolt throttle body. 1, 2, 3. This intake has a 4-bolt throttle body. And I believe the throttle body is slightly bigger on the stock Gen 4 than the Gen 3. This is actually a 78 millimeter, but we're going to be going to a 92 millimeter throttle body that I will show you guys later in the video. With that said, if you're looking at to do this swap and you've got one cheap, because these things you can find them used for $100 even with injectors. You can get an adapter for $25 to use this old throttle body. So just keep that in mind if you're looking at swapping these things out. Other than that, some of the stuff is the same. Well, at least position wise. This is your vacuum that goes to like your PCV valve. On this one, it's a hard line. So I'm going to be changing valve covers so I can use this one. The injectors are actually different as far as the connectors go. These are what they call multi-tech connectors, and I'm not sure if I can get one off right now, but I'll show you guys the difference when we change these out. The connectors are different, but the heights are exactly the same. They're the same length. So they're interchangeable between the two. If you've already got one set, you can just swap your injectors out to the other one. That's what I'm doing, because since these are Snake Eater A50cc injectors. Yeah, I know, Snake Eater, but they work. They've been working since I started truck, so I'm gonna keep them until it's time to get something else. But I might be pulling these injectors out because I do plan to run some nitrous oxide through this motor here. From there, map sensor is in the front on this one. It's in the rear on this one. The vacuum ports are just about in the same spot. And other than that, there's not a whole lot different. It's not quite a bolt-on because you do have to change either your throttle body or get the adapter. You do have to change the fuel system if you're using this setup. The fuel rails are not interchangeable. I think people can make them work. I don't know what the secret is, but I don't believe they are interchangeable at all. Just in a factory sense, I don't think this one fits on this one or vice versa. Other than that, there's really not a whole lot going on that's different. So it's not going to be too bad of a swap. Oh, I will say this. On my very first Terminator X install, I pulled this cap off here and I ran it to the Terminator X itself, which is the vacuum line for the map sensor on board the Holly. And you can do the same thing here. Now I'm not going to, because I'm going to use the factory map sensor this time instead. But just wanted to show you guys that in case you did want to try to do that yourself. All right. So yeah, that's pretty much the difference between the two. These are known on a good motor, good camshaft, to make about 10 to 15 more horsepower. Now I think that's at the flywheel. So it's not that significant, but it is pretty much throughout the whole curve. So hey, 10, 15 horsepower throughout the whole curve is a pretty big deal. And since this camshaft is a little bit of a larger camshaft, I talked with Nick, who from Brian Chili Racing, who said, go ahead and switch to the Gen 4 intake. So we're going to do so before we get all this thing back running and stuff. So this is pretty much the last thing we have to do before we put oil in it and get it running, you know. So, all right, like I said, I'm going to work on the fuel system here in a minute. One thing I'm going to do quick though is let me show you one of the things I got. First of all, this is the 92 millimeter throttle body from Summit that I'm going to be using. That's a dipstick too, and we're going to get to that in a minute. But this is the ICT billet center cover. And as you can see in there, I'm dropping stuff in there all the time. And I want to stop doing that. So I'm going to cover this up. These are the old Gen 3, what do you call it? Knock sensors. Sorry, I couldn't think of it. They're known to break when you try to pull them out. I don't use them anyway. You know, the actual knock sensor I think is gone. I think these are just grommets now. So I'm going to leave those in there as is. I'm going to cover all this up, put the new gasket on it, and put the new valley cover over it. So let me do that before I do anything else, so I can stop spilling stuff in this intake. I'm going to start this whole swap off with doing the same thing that I had to do on the other intake, and that's install this little bitty guy here, which this right here is a air intake temperature sensor. And well, there's really no provision for it because on these motors they run a mass airflow sensor, and we're not doing that. So just like on the other guy, I'm gonna put him right here. But in order to do that, I gotta cut this guy off. So I'll show you that whole process of installing this in case you ever need to do it yourself. Basically, gotta cut this off, drill it out. I need to file this down a little bit and then beat it in with a hammer. That's what we're gonna do. Half-inch drill bit. Shave down this portion right here. RTV. Insert. Hammer. Done. It's that easy. It's that easy. show you guys how that looks when it's all done. It's not coming out, likely, so that's kind of a permanent fixture. Let's hope it never goes bad. I'm going to pull this fuel rail off because I'm going to have to use my old injectors because that's what my tune is for. There's 4 bolts, 1, 2, 3, 4. I believe they're 8mm bolts, so I'm gonna pull them out, and then I'm gonna pull the rail off my old intake and swap out these injectors quick. It's not something that you necessarily have to do. They come off pretty easy. These little clips right here, they just slide off, and I'll show you all that once I get them both off. And then I'll swap them over, put my new injectors in, and then we'll go install this dude on the truck. Fuel rail for the Gen 4, fuel rail for the Gen 3. I still have my harness on it. I haven't pulled it off yet because I don't know, it's kind of a pain in the butt. I may just leave it on there. But basically, I need to pull these old injectors out. And it's actually pretty easy to pull them out. Clip off, and then some elbow grease behind it to pull this guy out. Here we go, actually. Get them all out and we'll go from there. So I just talked to you guys while it was on time lapse, so you didn't hear anything I said. Stock Gen 3 injector, even though this is not a stock injector, it's a stock size, stock housing. This is a stock, looks like to be a flex fuel injector from a Gen 4 motor. And what we want to see here is if you look at these two guys together, and we'll kind of do it like this. Look at the O-rings and where they're at. If you look at them where they're at, they are in the exact same place, meaning that these are interchangeable. The heights are exactly the same. Yeah, there's a cap on this, but that's not going to change anything when it comes to getting it in the intake. So these are the exact same size. I don't have to use spacers, adapters, or anything else to that extent. And I think we're going to be good to go. So I'm going to throw these in the new fuel rail. And then I'm going to throw my harness on, and then I'm going to double check my wiring on the harness because I want to make sure this is the #1 cylinder. I have it marked, but black, blue, this is like gray, this is green. These colors mean something as far as when it comes to the cylinder that they match, and you want to make sure you get the harness on the right one. So, all right, let me do that, and then we'll get to installing the intake on the truck itself. This guy's ready to go on. Quick, I learned something though. This is a Gen 3 intake manifold bolt, so from the old one. This is a Gen 4. Gen 3s have this little rubber thing on them, I guess to prevent from cracking the intake when you tighten it down. The Gen 4s don't have that. Just a little cool little note. I think if you took it off it would work with this intake, but hey, who knows. Brand new gaskets put on, and I got everything in place. Check this out. So we got the brake booster line in place that just pushes in. You can release it with this red thing if you push that in and pull it out. This was already in place here. Injectors are all on: black, blue, gray, and green. 1, 3, 5, 7. And then the corresponding side, this is for a Holly, of course, yellow, brown, violet, and orange. So my harness is on, ready to go. Remember, we just did that. We're good to go. This thing's ready to go on the intake manifold. So, sorry, on the truck itself. So let's go put it on and kind of get it all tightened down. All right, get all my harness out the way, getting my injector ready. Everything's good, everything's out the way. Get this dude out the way, stay out the way. Let's throw this guy on there. Before I throw it all the way on, I'm gonna connect my holly harness. Get that out of the way. Here we go. And then fish that down a little bit. We'll worry about that in a second. We are not down over here. Why not? Here we go. Looks like we're on. You throw the bolts in. There she blows, right? Completely bolted down and installed. Looks awesome. It looks better than the other one. And new black valve covers. We're gonna see how those work out. Didn't have red, but I needed to change them out. One thing I wanted to do on camera is this is the factory hard line that goes to like the PVC valve, or I think. And there we go. It just clicks on. It's nice and easy to get on and off. So that's kind of cool. I'll have to trim and add this adapter for my brake hose, which is not a big deal. I've routed all the wires for all the fun stuff through the what do you call it thing, through the the fuel rail there, so that's good to go. And now I'm going to put the throttle body on it, so let me show you guys that. So what I went out and bought was actually on sale is this awesome throttle body. So this is a 92 millimeter throttle body from Summit Racing. It's their own brand, and I think it's going to be perfect. It's way bigger than the old one, and I'll show you the difference between the two. We're talking about 14 millimeter difference between the two. So that's the old one. All right, and there's the new one. Pretty big difference there. So that's cool. I'm gonna have to use these sensors on it, which I might go ahead and throw on real quick while I can. So give me a second. Let me pull these guys off, and I'll throw them on here, and then we'll get it all bolted up, and that should be done for now, other than the fuel system, which I'll do off camera. I'll show you guys that when it's all done. Good news, the sensor's bolted right on. I'm going to plug them in before I try to get it hung, just because it looks like it probably is going to be a little easier. So that's the idle air control. Here's the TBSS sensor, throttle position sensor, however you want to call it. I think it is. Being a little stubborn. There it goes. All right. Can I get everything where it needs to be now? Yeah, I knew that was going to be a good idea. Except now I need to move the wiring back. There we go. I thought that was probably a good idea. All right, a couple bolts, a couple nuts, and we're going to be in business. There we go. Vroomba. Vroomba, vroomba. Ladies and gentlemen, other than a fuel system, we're done. As I said, like I'm going to work on the fuel system in a little bit. I'm going to call it a night for tonight. So that might be something that we worry about tomorrow. So I'm pretty happy. I'm pretty happy. It looks awesome. It's literally fuel system away from running. That's it. If we put the fuel system on it, it should run. I'm gonna do some stuff to check first. And oil. I'm gonna put a big no oil on it, but we're close. It's Sunday, and I've been after it for a few hours today and actually got a lot done. So let's look at everything. Brand new send line, well, not brand new, altered send line, is now going into the fuel pressure regulator. So this is in, this is out. I made a new line that goes to the fuel rail here, connects to the AN adapter, and then the return is still the return. That hasn't changed. So now the fuel pump will pump up through here, it'll get regulated, and then send out through here. The excess pressure will go through this line there, back to the tank. I was gonna run fuel pressure regulator right here, or not regulator, but sensor. I don't know if I'm going to keep the manual on or change that out yet, so I'm still debating that. But that's done. I also fabbed up this bracket here, and it's not the prettiest looking thing in the world, but it does work. So now I have a throttle bracket. The only thing that is a little suspect is, like, I can floor the truck and it'll go 100% throttle, but it's not to the floor of the truck, so I may need to find a way to make a throttle stop so I don't like break the cable trying to floor it. So I'll have to work on that. Put this LS3 style dipstick tube in place. A couple videos back, I put a new oil pan on this thing that has a lot more clearance, and it's similar to a Holley 302-1 oil pan, and they recommend using an LS3 oil dipstick tube. So I bought one from ICT Billet. It's actually not bad. I kind of like it. It's adjustable there, so I can pull that nut out and trim the cable or whatever I have to. Same thing if I wanted to do it on my locking dipstick tube up here. But that's all done. I finished making this little panel here, which is in place for now. Kind of painted this area that was all not so pretty, so that's all done. And basically, if I had fuel in this truck, it could fire up. That's where I'm at. Well, I say that it needs oil and transmission fluid, but it could fire up if I had everything in place. So we are that close. So now all we got left is one more large project, and it has to do with these guys right here, and that's the coilovers for the front of the truck. So that's going to be a bit of a project. I'm hoping I can start on that next weekend and maybe even finish still next weekend. So that's the last thing on the agenda before we put fluids in this thing, put the panels back on, and get it on the ground and see what happens. So I think we're making pretty good progress. I do have to make this line for some things, but 91% of this thing is done. Let's put it out that way. I can't believe it. It's been a year, over a year, and I was like, just to change the transmission, but I fully restored the bottom of this truck. The frame, boxer frame, there's just a ton of work. When you get under there and look around, you're like, holy cow. So I'm excited. I hope you're excited. I'm ready to throw the coilovers in next video, so keep an eye out for that. Other than that, today, I'm gonna shut it down. So I hope you guys had a fantastic weekend. If you didn't catch it on last video, we have new merch. We've got 2 shirts, a hoodie, and a hat. Check it out at racerxgarage.com. All of our merchandise is there. And, well, you know, If you like this stuff, you want to see this thing firing up in a couple weeks, and you're just joining us, please consider subscribing. We'd love to have you along. We always got something going on, and we'd love to have you hanging out with us while we work on these things. Other than that, social media, Facebook, Instagram at the RacerX Garage, and yeah, just I'm excited, guys. I hope you are too, and we'll see you next time. Until next time, you know the deal. Y'all be good.